There's a term in astronomy called the red shift, but I'm going to use the term in a political sense. There is a red shift going on in the country. People are literally shifting and moving from the blue states to the red states. The Claremont Institute, in an article about this, calls this right flight. And we see it all over the place. People are moving out of New York to Florida. They're moving out of California to Texas. And this stuff comes right home. I mean, in a sense, I lived from 2000 to 2017 or 18 in California. And then, well, in my case, Debbie was the one who kind of reeled me into Texas. But there were good reasons for us to want to live here in Texas and not in California. This is a great migration. A couple of other guys on our film team who live in California are both thinking of moving. One to Colorado, admittedly a purple state, and the other one to Florida. So this is a broad trend. Now, part of this, there's been some talk over the last couple of decades about Americans kind of self-segregating, partly because of the divide in the country. But the segregation that people talked about, the self-segregation, was kind of within places. And so you'd have red pockets, even in a blue state, or blue pockets in a red state. A perfect example of this would be, for example, if you're a liberal, you live in Texas, well, go to Austin. Austin's slogan is keep Austin weird. There are lots of red places in California that you can live. But now we're seeing the broader phenomenon of people literally leaving the blue state. And I think this is less due to the sort of dividedness of the country. The country is divided, and divided in a serious way. I was talking to someone the other day about the Civil War, and he was like, well, we're going to be reaching the point pretty soon where it's going to be like it was in 1860. But I was thinking to myself, no, we're more divided now than America was in 1860. Think about this. Abraham Lincoln, when he wrote a letter to Alexander Stephens, the vice president of the Confederacy, and he basically said, your side, the Democratic South, you think slavery is right and should be expanded. We think it is wrong and should be restricted. And then Lincoln says, that's the only substantial difference between us. In other words, we agree on most other things. So the country is divided on admittedly a very important issue, but on one issue. But now we're divided across the board. There's pretty much nothing they do that we approve of. There's pretty much nothing we do that they approve of. We don't even really like them. They don't really like us. So this is, I think, in some senses, a deeper fracture. Now, that being said, I think that the move from the blue states to the red states is motivated partly by that, perhaps, but mostly by differences in policy. And what does this tell you? It tells you that red policies, conservative policies, seem to work better. They work better. Why? Because even liberals will leave California and move to Texas. Obviously, because they're expecting a better standard of living. They're expecting to be able to get a better value in their home. They're expecting to pay less for groceries and clothes and gas. They're expecting to have better opportunities, more jobs, better chances of advancement. So what this really means is that California is a beautiful state. I mean, I think of all its wonderful, its natural advantages. It's got incredible topography, I think incomparable anywhere else in the United States. It's obviously got the sunshine. So there are sort of natural magnets that draw you to California. But what you don't have in California is good policies. Another way to put it is what you do have in California, the downside, is Democrats. And not just Democrats, but a kind of Democratic majority, a Democratic stranglehold on the state. And this means the Democratic and leftist policies pass largely unopposed. So, look, California and Texas outwardly are pretty similar. They're both big states. They're large, both in terms of population and size. They're both kind of Western states. They were, interestingly, both, at least for a brief time, independent republics. Even though Texas was a slave state and California not, they were largely unaffected, untouched by the Civil War. And they have a lot of similar industries. They have agriculture, they have energy and oil, they have big tech. And by the way, they both have a lot of Latinos and Latinas. Both have a substantial Hispanic population. So really what's happened is the two states, however, have gone in different policy directions. They have different views, not just of economics, not just of taxes, but different views of immigration, different views of abortion, different views of social issues. And California is proving to be a dud. Now, California does work if you're basically really rich, because then you're untouched by the problems. You have gated communities. You're able to kind of insulate yourself from the rest of California. In this sense, you could say California is a luxury product. For a Silicon Valley billionaire, it's probably okay to live there. But if you depend on ordinary social services, if you want to travel by normal means on the roads, you're basically going to have a hard time in California. It's a mess. So who cares that California has the Getty Museum, the San Francisco Opera? Those are nice things to have, but they are no substitute for the ordinary amenities that make life livable for the common man. I think it was Hayek who said many years ago that the advantage of having a diversity of states, each one pursuing their own policies, is you have a framework of competing utopias. Another way to put it is states are laboratories of democracy. They allow you test this and we'll test that and we'll see what works. And by the simple metric of people voting with their feet, in this case, voting not to leave one country and go to another, but to leave one state and go to another, you can say Texas is winning and California is losing. Florida is winning and New York is losing. And by the way, winning here doesn't just mean attracting more people. It also means that the number of congressional seats in places like Texas and Florida is going to inch up, creating a red political advantage that goes with the population advantage. So this is a way of adjudicating in a kind of clinical and perhaps even scientific way whether red America or blue America works better. The verdict is in, and we have to award the medal to red America.